It's the middle of October, and the Dodgers are no longer playing baseball. So let's talk about it. At the time of recording this, the Dodgers have already announced that manager Dave Roberts will be returning next year. That's no shock to me, at least. When you have a manager that wins 100 games a year, has taken your club to the World Series 3 times, I think it's hard to part ways with a manager like that. So, not to mention, I know there's, talk about what he did in Game 3 and not starting Ryan Pepio. I think the Dodgers have bigger issues than, whether or not Dave pitches Ryan Pepio, and we'll get into those a little bit. Before I talk about specific players that I would like to see the Dodgers sign, I want to talk quickly about the kind of players I would like them to sign. And I think, when I look back at the early 2000s, like the late 2008, like late 2000s, early 2010s team, there were some clubhouse issues, some loud voices, and we're now seeing kind of the opposite of that. It's really buttoned up. They go about their business. They won 100 games. They go to the playoffs, and unfortunately, the last couple of years, they exit very early. And part of that's the bats going silent. Part of it starting pitching. We'll get into all that. But what I think the team lacks noticeably is the kind of player that, as a batter, he hits a home run, and then Max Muncy will bat flip, and then he'll just trot. But they don't really have a guy that will hit a home run. And I'm thinking like Gavin Lux, who we'll get back this year. But Gavin Lux, he hit that home run. I forget which game it was in the postseason, but then he bangs his chest when he's looking at the dugout, and he says, "Let's effing go." The Dodgers don't really have any of that anymore. I think Will Smith this year, of all guys, in the ninth inning of Game 3, he hits a single, and then he turns to the dugout and goes, "Come on, let's go!" Like that. But that was like the first show of emotion, really, from the offense. And it's kind of the same with the pitching staff. They're gonna get a guy back that'll show emotion in Walker Buehler, and again, we'll touch on that in a little bit. But they don't. Clayton Kershaw showed great emotion earlier in the year, where he, the picture's pretty memorable. I forget who he struck out, but then he's like clutching both his fists as he's walking back towards the dugout. Julio, who's no longer on the team, would throw out, a couple FUs as he's on the way to the dugout. But, you lose kind of guys like that. And even then, that wasn't seen all too often. The really fiery guys, they have Alex Vesia. It was kind of refreshing to see Lance Lynn, say what you will about him and how that third inning went, but it was kind of cool to see him, rearrange his jock strap a little bit, walking back to a dugout, or just see any kind of emotion is what I'm getting at. And I think the Dodgers need that. I think Freddie, Mookie, Dave, very level-headed, nice guys. They do a great job of not letting the highs get too high or the lows get too low. But there's no one that kind of shakes, or shakes the cage or, rattles a saber a little bit. Nothing to kind of, put a fire into the team. And so part of what I'm looking at in players is, can a guy, show off a little bit? Like the Dodgers are very businesslike, and that's great. I would much rather have that than the opposite. But I still think a balance is needed. You can inject a little bit of life just with one or two personalities added to the lineup or into the clubhouse. Excuse me. All right, so that out of the way, this is what I think the Dodgers should do. And we're going to talk about the lineup and kind of how it's constructed. The rotation, obviously, a little bit about the bullpen, and then I'll touch on Ohtani. My first thought with the lineup is something the club alluded to early in the spring training, with regards to Mookie Betts at the top, was not having him at the top. Maybe, he was coming into his own as a slugger, and that kind of bat is better in a more run producing role. So maybe batting third or fourth, or anywhere but the leadoff spot, which is ironic because he did break Charlie Blackmon's record for most RBIs out of the leadoff spot this year. But that aside, he led the club with 12, or not led the club, of course he did, but I think he led the league with 12 leadoff home runs or something like that. What if he bats third? And those, a couple of those 12 solo shots are 2-run shots, 3-run shots, whatever. Regardless, I think since he has an emphasis on hitting doubles, hitting the ball over the wall, it would be better to have him bat third. And I would like him to bat third because, going back to what I talked about, having that injection of a personality, that's the kind of guy, that fiery guy, I want batting leadoff. And I have one guy in particular that I wouldn't mind batting leadoff, but we'll get back, we'll touch on that in a little bit. So move Mookie down in the order. Second thing with Mookie is move him to second base. And there are a handful of reasons for this. Number one is his health. I mean, he's not unhealthy. He played in 156 games this year. It's more of, he even says that over the course of the year, he feels fresher. It's less of a toll on his body when he plays second base as opposed to right field. Okay, have him play second base primarily. He can still play right field, but I think he played 2/3 of the year at right field, and the other third of the year was at second and short. Flip it. Have it, 2/3 of the year at second, and then a third of the year in right field. I think that that works. There are two more reasons. The first one is in-house options for young guys getting opportunities next year are better suited for outfield. So I'm talking about Johnny DeLuca, Andy Pages, and Michael Busch specifically. These are guys that defensively the team doesn't know what to do with them. So, I think Michael Busch looked fine at third base. If you want Max Muncy to DH, that depends on what you do with the free agency class and in the offseason. But that aside, Michael Busch can play third. There's talks about just stashing them all in left field. Same with Miguel Vargas. I know they're trying to make him a second baseman. Maybe they just make him a left fielder. And you get his bat in the lineup that way. Regardless, those young guys, it's easier to stash some of those bats, the bats that they're talking about, really producing at the next level. It's easier to do that when defensively they're just, kind of hidden. The last reason is looking at the free agency market. There aren't a lot of bats available, specifically infielders. And even then, infielders tend to be more expensive than outfielders. You can get a decent outfield bat for, just like the $8 and $11 million range. Infielders typically more because there's a higher defensive value. So as the Dodgers look to sign some big name free agents, being able to supplement the rest of their roster with platoon guys that you don't have to pay that much because they're platoon bats that are in the outfield, that helps the roster building process. And there are kind of more outfielders anyway than there are infielders. So I think that helps the team as well. Just, looking at it at first glance, Kevin Kiermaier is an undrafted free agent. Or not undrafted free agent, an unrestricted free agent. So is Jurickson Profar. He's a switch hitter. He plays outfield. You can take some of these guys, and stick them in the outfield, and they're not going to cost. They're not going to break the bank. The two options I have, one's a reclamation and one's the obvious. And so we'll get to the obvious one first. Is Cody Bellinger. just re-sign him, bring him home. I think they let him go because the last 2 years in LA, he didn't really produce at the plate. He had a couple offseason moments that were pretty nice, but he struggled. This year, he did not. He had an 881 OPS. He had a 133 OPS plus. Hell, he even stole 20 bags, which is nice. The Dodgers could definitely use some more dynamic base running. Love Freddie to death, but Freddie Freeman should not be the guy leading the Dodgers in stolen bases. He shouldn't be. I love that he is, but you get somebody else to run the bases. He is going to be expensive. There are reports that his contract could reach the $30 million range. So what? Just give him the money. Get 7 years, 210, 220. Sure, why not? Oh, and you can stick him to right. James Outman can play center, or you could move James Outman to right. I don't know. Whatever, tickles your fancy. Whatever you like. Just do one of the two. Bring him home. Let's get him. He's dynamic on the base paths. He'll hit a home run, bat flip it, and give an FU. He's also a fiery guy. If they re-sign Kike, which, spoiler alert, I hope they do, just make sure they don't do any more forearm shivers, but bring him back. I think he won Gold Glove playing right field before Mookie Betts. And if you're worried about the years because, defensively it's hard to play center or right field, he came up as a first baseman. He played great at first base. We have, Freddie Freeman for 4 more years. So Freddie plays the rest of his contract. You give Belly 7-8 years. The last 3 years of that contract, or 4 years of that contract, Belly can just play first. It's easy enough. So I think Belly just checks all the boxes. I mean, granted, I think he checks the boxes for a lot of teams, which is why he's going to be so expensive. But I think he's worth it. He knows the team. He knows the club. He knows everybody. He's older now. He's a year older. You're wiser. He can be a little bit more of a voice in the clubhouse if he wants to be. So I just, every team is going to sit there and go, well, he's the perfect fit for our team. Well, he's literally the perfect fit for the Dodgers because we drafted him. So, let's get him home. The cheap outfield option I have, which I like as a platoon, is actually Harrison Bader. And I might be valuing his sprint speed a little too highly. He's in the 85th percentile in sprint speed. He's awful at the plate, though. I think in his last, I think last year was like 69 nice OPS plus. He hasn't had an OPS plus over 100 in like 3 or 4 years. Hey man, we brought in Jason Hayward, and that worked out. I think Freddie and Van Scoyoc had a lot to do that, but why can't they do that with Harrison Bader? He's great defensively. He's a great outfield or a great center fielder. He's very rangy. You can ask a Yankees fan, and they'll say when he was playing, no matter what the numbers looked like, he always seemed to make an impact one way or another, whether it's the glove, on the base paths, whatever. And I think if they and he'll be cheap. He won't be very expensive. And if the Dodgers do, make a move for him, he could just be a platoon guy. And because he bats right-handed, so you just, see if he hits lefties. Actually, here, we'll do a little bit. Let's look it up right now. His handedness, because I should have done this before then. Okay, yeah. Okay, well, this is all time. But per RotoWire, his last 90 at bats against lefties, he's got a 936 OPS plus. I don't know. I'll take it. We'll just platoon him against lefties, and have him has a great, defensive substitution, pinch running, whatever. He's just very versatile, and he'll be cheap. So that's what I'm saying is you can get a guy like Harrison Bader on the cheap. He can fill out a lot of roles. He's 29, so he'll be, he's not super old or anything. He's not going to lose a step immediately. unless you're playing Madden, because by the time you hit 30, your 98 speed receiver just goes down to 84 for whatever reason. So yeah, he'll be a cheap option. He's rangy. He does a lot of things really well, and I think he fits the club from that perspective. And it'll allow you to sign some of the other guys that I'm about to talk about. So those are my options. Also, offensively, I would really like them to re-sign Kike. Just a guy who, yeah, he was bad in Boston. But good Lord, does he show up in the playoffs? I mean, his first year in Boston, he hit like 5 home runs in the ALDS or something crazy like that. He just has a knack for when the lights come on, he steps up. He showed up to Game 3 wearing a Kobe jersey because he does have that kind of mentality. He wants those big at bats. He said so himself. Bring him back. He fits the profile again of guys that I like in terms of we'll hit a home run and fire up the clubhouse a little bit. The club kind of needs someone to loosen them up. His act got a little tired, with the banana suit and the dancing and all that, towards the end, but it was just it was missed when he was gone because nobody was doing that. And then everybody was just kind of stiff. If just the dugout felt stiff, and, Kike's hips are anything but, so maybe he can bring some life to the clubhouse. Again, positional versatility, good base runner, all this. He won't be horribly expensive, so bring him back. The last guy, bring back. I'm full on just bring these dudes back. Bring back Jock Peterson. Again, platoon bat. You can stick him in left field. He might need to run a few more sprints than he has been lately. Platoon him against righties. You can have Harrison Bader against left-handed pitching, Jock against right-handed pitching. Again, though, the dude just shows up in October. That's what he does. Get him back in the clubhouse. But I'm maybe it's just because the last few years have gone so poorly for the Dodgers, but these are guys that we've seen show up in October, produce. They're the reasons they got to the dance and the show in 2017. They were there in 2020. It was called Jocktober for a reason. These are the kind of guys I want because the Dodgers have enough guys in 162 to win. Your Mookies, your Freddies, your Max Muncies, your Will Smiths. These guys are going to show up. Your Gavin Luxes are going to show up. And they'll be fine the regular season. And then in October, my God, I would love a lineup that had Kike Hernandez and Jock Peterson back in it. It's just because those guys, when the lights are brighter, they step up. The other option I have, and to bat leadoff really quickly before I touch on the rotation, is I wouldn't hate having Kike bat leadoff. The other option, but I don't know if he's ready for it, is Gavin Lux. They tried it 2 years ago, and he wasn't doing too hot. Remember when Mookie went down with that hip? They tried Gavin Lux at leadoff, and he didn't really produce. He seemed way more comfortable batting ninth. He's coming off an ACL. He's going to play shortstop. So maybe the Dodgers just try to keep things simple for him because he's going to be playing shortstop professionally for the first time because he didn't get to start at all last year. Maybe they want to stick him back ninth, which is fine because he doesn't have to worry about all that pressure of batting leadoff. He can just turn the lineup card over. But Gavin Lux is the kind of guy that I think should and could bat leadoff. He's not a big power hitter. He'll get you 12 to 15 home runs a year, maybe. He's fast as hell on the base paths. He can get on base. He's on first. Freddie hits a double. Gavin Lux scores from first. It's kind of like when we had Trey Turner. It'll be that kind of offense again. And then, with Freddie on second, Mookie drives him in with a single, double, whatever. You see where I'm going with this. So Kike or Gavin Lux would be my two choices to bat leadoff at this point. The only reason as well I would prefer Lux is I know the Dodgers love just kind of having their top 5 guys set in stone. So it would look something along the lines of Lux, Freeman, Mookie, Muncy or whoever they get to DH. Will Smith can bat fifth again. I think that's best for him. Stuff like that. They want those top 5 guys set, and then your 6, 7, 8, 9, or 7, 8, 9 can rotate in and out as they need to be. And Kike is gonna. They might, if they bring him back, maybe they platoon him or whatever. But he's less of an everyday guy than Gavin Lux will be. So that's what I think about what they should do with the offense. Let me know what you think in the comments below. We're going to move on to the rotation. So before we do that, though, I'm going to have a sip of a freshly made margarita. God, that's good. Okay, let's move on to the rotation. The rotation, as it stands, with guys that will be healthy and are on the roster next year, I believe it's going to be Buehler, Miller, and then Pepio. Pepio, they wanted him to take the over from the number 5 spot in the rotation last year. I imagine, unless something happens, he'll be the number 5 starter again this year. Kershaw, we don't know what his status is, if they're going to bring him back, if he's going to retire. There are so many questions about Kershaw. Love the guy to death, but you can't count on him right now. And even if they do bring him back, I don't even know if you want him pitching every 5th day. Again, too many questions, so I'm not really going to consider Kershaw on this. Either way, you have 3 guys. Dustin May is not expected back until the All-Star break. Again, even if he is, what does that look like? How many innings does he get? Anyway, regardless, you still need 2 guys. You need at least a 1, 2, or 3 starter, depending on what you think of Walker Buehler. I like Bobby Miller being the 3rd starter in the rotation, so it's either a 1 or a 2. Ryan Yarborough's coming back, so he could be, again, same role as this past year, length out of the bullpen. He can spot start for you, but he's not a 1 or a 2. If you like Walker Buehler as a 1, you can sign him a 2. It doesn't matter. 1A, 1B, however you want to put it. They need someone at the top of the rotation, and they need someone in the bottom of the rotation to be that 4th guy. So there's a handful of guys. The pitching free agent market is a little bit more robust than the hitting side. Personally, and I'm going to get this out of the way now, I don't like Blake Snell. He's going to cost way too much money. You're going to pay for years where he's not going to be as good. And to be honest, outside of the past 2 Cy Young, not past 2, he's going to win Cy Young this year. Outside of the 2 years he won Cy Young, he's like a mid-3s, low-4 ERA pitcher, and he doesn't give you length. I think he went into the 7th inning like 3 times this year, or he faced a batter in the 7th inning like 3 times. Something along those lines. I don't think that's entirely correct, but it was low. The Dodgers could really use a guy with some length. I think he's going to cost too much. At the back end of that contract, it's going to be pretty ugly. I think you're paying premium price for what he has done and not what he will or could do. A lot of the expected numbers, his Sierra and his like xFIP, are not great. They're pointing to some serious regression. I know they need a left-handed pitcher. I just don't think Snell is that guy. I don't know who it could be. You could try getting Eduardo Rodriguez from Detroit again if he opts out of his player option. If you want, but like he didn't want to the first time, so why would he this time? But there aren't great, or there are good options. I just don't think Blake Snell is the top. Is the top choice. Okay. The number 1 guy I'd like to see is Yoshinobu Yamamoto. You're going to hear his name a ton. He's got a high 90s fastball and a power curve. Sound like anybody you know. He's been compared to Clayton Kershaw in terms of his curve a handful of times. So why not? He's going to cost... I think Masahiro Tanaka was like 7 years, 160 something. The kid, he's a 25-year-old pitcher from Japan. God, give him the Freddie Freeman treatment if you want. 6 for 162. He's probably going to cost closer to $30 million a year. That's fine. Give it to him. Again, you're the Dodgers. You can afford it. I think he's the guy the Dodgers really, really, really need to get. I actually have him over Ohtani, spoiler alert, because Ohtani can't pitch next year. This kid can, and this kid, his strikeout numbers are really good. He's at 25%, which usually goes up for Japanese pitchers. You look at what Kodai Senga did. He was 30 when he came over. This kid's 25. So I think he's definitely someone that the Dodgers really need to target. He can be a number 1 or a number 2, give you some length. He won the Triple Crown twice in Japan. He's won their version of the Cy Young. In the last few years, he had a sub-2 ERA. It's everything you want and more, and he fills an immediate need. The cheaper option is Aaron Nola. You're really just paying for him for what he does in the playoffs. He's like a 4 ERA guy in September through August, so I don't know if he's a 1 or a 2. He's probably a 3 or 4 in the regular season, but my God, again, when October shows up, does he show up? And that's kind of all you care about. So I have no issues with Aaron Nola. I think he's fine. He's somebody that, he'll give you length. He'll be sort of expensive. It's going to be a little bit of the Blake Snell where you are, the back end of that contract's not going to be pretty, but I trust Aaron Nola in October. And I think there is a price to that. I think it's worth it if you can get him to October healthy, what he can do. From the left-handed side, the only guy that I really see that's worth anything is Jordan Montgomery. He's 31. He'll be 31 years old. He's left-handed. He's been great for the Rangers this year. The Rangers traded for him, and he's been awesome in the playoffs. Again, October arm. He's not a 1 or a 2. He's probably a 3 or a 4. So, with an Aaron Nola or Jordan Montgomery, I'd still like them to go out and get a primo guy, a guy that you can stick in it in game 1. But, if you have Aaron Nola or Jordan Montgomery, pitching game 3 in a 5-game set, awesome. And then if they pitch game 3 in a 7-game set, well, you need them for game 6. So you see, you'll still get those arms twice in a long series. I don't think you can go wrong with JMO or Aaron Nola. Yoshinobu is my top choice in the free agent market. There are 2 names from the trade market. It's hard to predict trades because you kind of don't know that they're happening until the day before they happen, till you see, a Jeff Passan tweet saying something along the lines of the X club is actively seeking a trade for X player, or so-and-so is in deep conversations for a trade with this player. So these are tough to kind of nail down. I think the one player that if they were to get traded, or if there were a trade to happen, I think this is the most likely trade candidate for any team. It's Corbin Burns. I think, there was some serious damage done to the relationship between the Brewers and Corbin Burns last year, and he's a number 1 guy. He's someone you stick at number 1 and number 2, and you let him eat. And, I know he kind of got rocked against the Diamondbacks, so I'll bet on him again. I'll bet on that not happening to Corbin Burns again. So let's, if you can trade for him, trade for him. The Dodgers have a plethora of guys they need to add to the 40-man roster that they probably can't. So instead of losing guys to the Rule 5 draft, why not package them? I mean, hell, they've shown they don't really want to use Michael Busch because he had opportunities and they just didn't. I mean, even in those few opportunities, he wasn't great, but the Dodgers could have utilized him more last year and didn't. So, a trade package that involves a Michael Busch for a Corbin Burns who's on the last year of his deal. Just do it. Get you can never have too much pitching in this league. The Dodgers are the number one example of you're going to need 7 starting pitchers a year. 8. You go in with a 5-man rotation, and then by God, the all-star break rolls around and half that rotation isn't there anymore. So, I would like to see Corbin Burns traded for if it's possible. The other guy that is less likely, but this is more of following the trend of a club, is Tyler Glasnow. I think he made $5 million or $6 million last year, and then this upcoming year he's due way more than that, and the Rays don't like paying their players ever. So I could see a world where they trade for a Tyler Glasnow. I'll take him, high 90s fastball, power curve. It's, disgusting secondaries. Plays up in the postseason, get him in the lab with Mark Pryor. Maybe they work on something. Who cares? I know he's kind of injury prone. So that's you do have to worry about that. But like I said, you still need more pitching. So going back over this, my number one is Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And then if you don't sign him, you got to trade for Corbin Burns or Tyler Glasnow because you need a number one. You can fill out your rotation with a handful of guys, Aaron Nola and Jordan Montgomery chief among them. But, players that are going to hit free agency this year, you could get your Lucas Giolito's. Sonny Gray, if he's available. He's been toying with retirement. Who knows? I think Ross Stripling's available again, so you could get him. The point being, there's a lot of guys you can plug in and sign for that third or fourth, fifth man in the rotation. So you need to get Yamamoto, Burns, or Glasnow, in my opinion. And then outside of that, Nola, Montgomery, and then there's a lot of guys. So, that's what I have to say on the rotation. The bullpen, I don't know, just bring back everybody. The bullpen was so good. I think Joe Kelly's got a $9 million option. Pick it up. Or I don't know if he's a free agent, but either way, pick it up. Ross Stripling has a player option for $15 million. Maybe he'll sign that. I don't know. Anyway, hey, look, Alex Wood's available. I don't know. I'll go grab him. Anyway, sorry, that was backtracking. Back to the bullpen. Just re-sign everybody. You bring back Joe Kelly. Bring back Ryan Brazier. I know they like to go dumpster diving, but my God, how many times can you do it and have it work? They do have some guys that are supposed to come off the 60-day IL. Alex Reyes, Fire Eisen, Daniel Hudson, Gus Varland. Kyle Hertz made an appearance. They have a lot of options. Gavin Stone could come out of the bullpen. Michael Grove, I'd love to see in the bullpen primarily. You got a lot of guys they can work with. I don't know. Just bring back the guys, the demons the devils as opposed to the ones you don't. They're probably not gonna. They'll probably let Joe Kelly walk because $9 million's a lot. I don't see them going after Josh Hader. He's expensive. They'll pick up Evan, because Evan Phillips is going to be expensive already. So I don't see them going for Josh Hader. They do kind of need another left-hander out of the bullpen, but Josh Hader doesn't really fit what they like. He really only wants to pitch and save opportunities in the 9th inning, and the Dodgers just kind of like mixing and matching guys. Even though Evan Phillips was the de facto closer, they didn't name him the closer. Either way, they got a lot of options there. I'm not too worried about the bullpen. I doubt they pick up Yency Almonte's option or they bring him back in general. But either way, a lot of guys, I trust them to figure that one out. Okay. Ohtani. So far, I've talked about Cody Bellinger. He'll be like $30 million plus. Yamamoto will be close to $30 million plus. That's $60 million. Would you rather have Shohei Ohtani or Yamamoto or Cody Bellinger? It's probably a conversation you're going to see quite a bit. My answer is, you're the Dodgers. Just do all of it. The Los Angeles Dodgers might as well be a minting company because they just print money. They just do. There is no salary cap. There's a luxury tax. But, I mean, they're going to sell out the stadium anyway. How much, I mean, do they even have to make Cody Bellinger jerseys at this point? Can they just bring back the old ones? I mean, and just resell those? The marketing with Ohtani and Yamamoto would be through the roof because of the connections between Japanese players and the Dodgers. Kenta Maeda, Hideo Nomo, the list goes on and on and on. Just sign them all. The reason I have a Yamamoto over Ohtani, and it's kind of a 1A, 1B, but Ohtani can't pitch next year. But my God, is this bat just so worth it? Just give him $60 million a year. Give Cody 30. Give Yamamoto 30. And we'll have the most expensive roster in the league, but who cares? You're the Dodgers. You'll figure it out. Realistically, will they do that? No. Unfortunately not. But I think you got to go after some of these guys if you want to win in October. Ohtani is that fiery guy. He'll hit. I mean, look at the emotion he showed when he struck out Trout in the WBC. You can bat him leadoff because, does he absolutely crush baseballs with impunity? Yes. But when he gets on base, he can steal bags. He can hit doubles. He's like the ideal leadoff hitter, in my opinion. So just throw the bag at Ohtani. And this is going way back to the beginning of the video. Why you want Mookie Betts at second base? Outfielders aren't that expensive. So if you can't give, if it's a conversation of we can do Ohtani and or Yamamoto, or Ohtani and Yamamoto or Cody Bellinger, you just say, oh, sorry, Cody, we'll just bring in Yamamoto because they need pitching desperately, and you can fill out the rest of your roster with outfielders cheaply. Ideally, you just sign all three of them and call it a day. Couple quick notes I have. You always need more bullpen help. Like I said, bring everybody back, even with guys coming off the 60-day IL. Just bring them all back. And I hate to end this wonderful 37-minute video on a somber note, but I think it's time that the Dodgers transition Austin Barnes to bench coach. There were a lot of conversations about Will Smith getting tired, and that's why his second season numbers didn't look too good. If they're worried about what your primary catcher's production looks like, and he is one of the best offensive catchers in baseball, he is one of the few batters that showed up in the NLDS, and I truly believe that is because he had a 5-day break. You need a better backup catcher. And with not knowing if Kershaw's coming back and Austin Barnes being the, Kershaw's catcher, even though he didn't catch for him in game 1 of the NLDS anyway, Kershaw may be gone. Maybe it's time we say bye to Barnesy too. Love him to death. I remember years in 2017 and 2018 where I was begging for, or not 2017, 2018, like 2020, 2019, when AJ Ellis was there. I can't remember the year. When I was begging for Austin Barnes to get, more at-bats, to pinch hit. Those days are long gone. Offensively, he's not there. And I hate it. You can keep him in the clubhouse as a bench coach. Just keep his voice around because the players listen to him. He can still help the pitchers out. And more importantly, he can help out the catcher they potentially do sign. I think you got to give Hunter Fiducia. Like, there are so many catchers in the system. By so many, I mean 3. He can mentor Hunter Fiducia a little bit. If Diego Cartaya's main problem, I know he struggled at AA. I think it was double A. I know he struggled when he moved up a division, but if his main problem is defense, who better to help him than Austin Barnes? I mean, defensively, he's really good. Just don't ask him to throw to second. But you got to give Hunter Fiducia, Dalton Rushing, Diego Cartaya, any one of these catchers a shot. And if they work, then you can give Will Smith a few more days off here and there. So, yeah, I think it's time for that as well. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you like my ideas? Do you hate them? Am I crazy? If you could only have 2 of the 3 or just one of the 3, who would you rather have among Bellinger, Yamamoto, and Ohtani? Let me know in the comments below. I threw my Twitter on this side of the screen right there, so you can follow me there. I've never done this before, so that was really awkward. So that's right. Yeah. Hey, look at that. I did it. You can follow me there. And, yeah, I'll, as the the offseason and free agent signings come around, I'll be making more of these and reacting to it. So thanks, guys. See you later.